Good afternoon, friends. Welcome. Welcome to another Kahuna Reads. Let me give you folks some time to come in. But today's another episode of Kahuna Reads, so welcome. Today, I don't have anything in the queue yet for reading, so we're going to hang for a couple of minutes and see if anybody pops in. If you do want to have something in there, the invite link is in chat. Move this up, actually. Fix that. Move this down a little bit. Ooh. Oh yeah, I'm changing things right here even as we go. Let me just do a quick adjustment here. There we go. Now, once again, let's put that back in. There we go. All right, so if you would like to have me read something, you can drop it into my Discord in the Showcase Requests channel, and I will be more than happy to voice act that live. Otherwise, we're going to get started here with Chapter 6 of Frankenstein. Now, Chapter 6, up till now, we have met Victor Frankenstein. We've learned about his interest in learning. That as it goes on, as it goes on, how he gets obsessed with the idea of reanimating dead tissue, and he builds his monster, as he refers to it, and his creation. And he realizes as soon as he sees it come to life that he has made a grave error. He actually runs. And he runs into town, through the town, and there he finds his friend Clerval. Henry Clerval has come to town to visit him and to start to go to school, same schools. And when Frankenstein goes back to his apartment, his home, monster's gone. Does he go looking for it? No, he tries to ignore it. Welcome, Raiders! Welcome. Welcome in. Welcome, my friends. I have not quite started yet. Excellent. Oh, you'll notice something just happened. Oh, I can do that too. Well, there's a few there I gotta add. Gotta add a few of you. You'll notice I have started adding back in your walk-ons. I'm gonna make sure I write them down properly because I've got to do them just right. I know Siobhan's has changed since the first time. Torres has not changed. How are you all? Welcome. Yes, I have finally figured out how to do it. Clock Walk has been fairly consistent lately. In being here, so that was the first one I added in, but I'll add everybody else in too. How are y'all doing? How's everybody doing? If you have something you'd like me to read, drop it in my Discord in the Showcase Request channel, because I have nothing right now. And I'd like to have something to read. So go for it. Yeah, let's see. See if I can add. It may not trigger this time. May not trigger till the next time, but I can add these in as I go. Oops, wrong button. See here. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do it on stream because it's just going to take too much time to do it. I have to do a whole setup. Actually, maybe not. Hang on. Can I duplicate? Yes, I can. Edit. All right, so we'll start with lock on. Right. Yeah, let's see. Okay, now I have to edit this. Edit trigger, there we go. Whoops. Writer. Okay, and I have to change the video. Hang on a second here. Pretty sure I know where Siobhan's is. Look under the U-Walks first. Uh-oh, maybe I don't have it. I'm looking. Devon, I don't have yours anymore for some reason. Well, I can tell you what the reason is. The reason is I changed a whole bunch of... Well, it's a whole new computer for that matter. So, if you'd like me to create one for you, let me know. You can put that in Showcase Requests as well. So we're going to change this to Torah's because a Torah I have. Just saw it. There it is. Hit the trigger. Spell that correctly. Nope, 2 T's. Okay, so a safe fanfare? Okay. Cheat is out of surgery, groggy and sore, but resting. All right, this should be what a Torah's looks like. Oh, safe as in not copyrighted. Okay. So those will pop up every time, the first time you say something in stream after I have restarted the stream. Lock hat one, sable hat. Let me see if I have sables. Hang on. Do I have sables? I don't have sables. Was this Sables? No. I'm looking. I'm deleting tons of videos while I'm at it, too. Sorry. Yes, and it also means I'm going to be able to add some I'll be able to add some commands back as well. Finally found a way to do it. Oh, no. No. What? Wait, what was that? What was that? I just see tables, maybe? Nope, that's not it. I'm looking, and I don't have Sables either. So, gang, if you would like one, especially if you had one before, just drop a request in Showcase Requests, and I will build one for you again. Because a bunch of mine got lost when I had to move hard drives around and files around because I was running out of space, and then I had to build a new computer and all that stuff. So I apologize if I don't have it yet. And they will pop up the first time you speak. The first time you speak in chat. First time you speak in chat in each stream. You know, actually, let me try this. No. I get too into the weeds. All right. So, since I don't have anything, nobody has submitted anything for me to read, I'm going to start with Chapter 6 of Frankenstein. So, as I was saying, through Chapter 5, Frankenstein has created his monster, got scared of it, ran away, and when he came back to his place, they were gone. The monster was gone. And he's starting to believe that maybe, a few months go by, actually, and his friend Clerval from his hometown has come in and is kind of nursing him back to health, and has convinced him that that Frankenstein should contact his family. We have a 3-minute ad break starting here, gang. I apologize that we have to do these, but we do. So bear with me here. We're going to get through the ad break, and when we come back, we'll start Chapter 6 of, this. So hang tight. For those of you who have subs, by the way, I will recreate people who had the walk-ons before will get the walk-ons no matter what. After that, it's probably going to be something that, I'll figure out exactly how you earn or how you get a walk-on. Need to create. Putting these now in a new group. Neat. Duplicate this because there's somebody else who should be coming in. Change the media. Dun, 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 dun. Pretty sure I have that. Makes me mad that I don't have these. It means I have to build them again. That part sucks. Oops. Well, crap. Oh, I don't have that one either. All right. All right, app break is finishing, so we are back. Welcome back, my friends. All right. So here we go with Chapter 6 of Frankenstein. Clairfall then puts the following letter into my hands. It was from my own Elizabeth. My dearest cousin, you have been very ill, and even the constant letters of dear kind Henry are not sufficient to reassure me on your account. You are forbidden to write, to hold a pen. Yet one word from you, dear Victor, is necessary to calm our apprehensions. For a long time I have thought that each post would bring this line, and my persuasions have restrained my uncle from undertaking a journey to Ingolstadt. I have prevented his encountering the inconveniences and perhaps dangers of so long a journey, yet how often have I regretted not being able to perform it myself. I figure to myself that the task of attending on your sickbed is devolved on some mercenary old nurse who could never guess your wishes nor minister to them with the care and affection of your poor cousin. Yet that is over now. Clairfall writes that indeed you are getting better. I eagerly hope that you will confirm this intelligence soon in your own handwriting. Get well and return to us. You will find a happy, cheerful home and friends who love you dearly. Your father's health is vigorous, and he asks but to see you, to be assured that you are well, and not a care will ever cloud his benevolent countenance. How pleased you would be to remark the improvement of our Ernest. He is now 16 and full of activity and spirit. He is desirous to be a true Swiss and to enter into foreign service. We cannot part with him, at least until his elder brother returns to us. My uncle is not pleased with the idea of a military career in a distant country, but Ernest never had your powers of application. He looks upon study as an odious fetter. His time is spent in the open air, climbing the hills or rowing on the lake. I fear that he will become an idler unless we yield the point and permit him to enter on the profession which he has selected. Little alteration except the growth of our dear children has taken place since you left us. The blue lake and snow-clad mountains, they never change. And I think our placid home and our contented hearts are regulated by the same immutable laws. My trifling occupations take up my time and amuse me, and I am rewarded for any exertions by seeing none but happy, kind faces around me. Since you left us, but one change has taken place in our little household. Do you remember on what occasion Justine Moritz entered our family? Probably you do not. I will relate her history, therefore, in a few words. Madame Moritz, a mother, was a widow with 4 children, of whom Justine was the 3rd. This girl always had been the favourite of her father, but through a strange perversity, her mother could not endure her. After the death of Monsieur Moritz, he did her very ill. My aunt observed this, and when Justine was 12 years of age, prevailed on her mother to allow her to live at our house. The republican institutions of our country have produced simpler and happier manners than those which prevail in the great monarchies that surround it. Hence, there is less distinction between the several classes of its inhabitants, and the lower orders, being neither so poor nor so despised, their manners are more refined and moral. A servant in Geneva does not mean the same thing as a servant in France and England. Justine, thus received in our family, learned the duties of a servant, a condition which, in our fortunate country, does not include the idea of ignorance and a sacrifice of the dignity of a human being. Justine, you may remember, was a great favourite of yours, and I recollect you once remarked that if you were in an ill humour, one glance from Justine could dissipate it, for the same reason that Ariosto gives concerning the beauty of Angelica. She looked so frank-hearted and happy. My aunt conceived a great attachment for her, by which she was induced to give her an education superior to that which she had first intended. This benefit was fully repaid. Justine was the most grateful little creature in the world. I do not mean that she made any professions. I never heard one pass her lips. You could see by her eyes that she almost adored her protectress. Although her disposition was gay and in many respects inconsiderate, yet she paid the greatest attention to every gesture of my aunt. She thought her the model of all excellence, endeavoured to imitate her phraseology and manners, so that even now she reminds me of her. When my dearest aunt died, everyone was too much occupied in their own grief to notice poor Justine, who had attended her during her illness with the most anxious affection. Poor Justine was very ill, but other trials were reserved for her. One by one, her brothers and sisters died, and her mother, with the exception of her neglected daughter, was left childless. The conscience of the woman was troubled. She began to think that the deaths of her favourites was a judgment from heaven to chastise her partiality. She was a Roman Catholic, and I believe her confessor confirmed the idea which she had conceived. Accordingly, a few months after your departure for Ingolstadt, Justine was called home by her repentant mother. Poor girl! She wept when she quitted our house. She was much altered since the death of my aunt. Grief had given softness and a winning mildness to her manner, which had before been remarkable for vivacity. Nor was her residence at her mother's house of a nature to restore her gaiety. The poor woman was very vacillating in her repentance. She sometimes begged Justine to forgive her unkindness, which much oftener accused her of having caused the deaths of her brother and sister. Perpetual fretting at length threw Madame Moritz into a decline, which she first increased her irritability. She is now at peace forever. She died on the first approach of cold weather, than at the beginning of this last winter. Justine has just returned to us, and I assure you I love her tenderly. She is very clever and gentle, and extremely pretty. As I mentioned before, her mien and her expression continually remind me of my dear aunt. I must also say a few words to you, my dear cousin, of little darling William. You wish you could see him. He is very tall of his age, with sweet, laughing blue eyes, dark eyelashes, and curling hair. When he smiles, 2 little dimples appear on each cheek, which are rosy with health. He has already had 1 or 2 little wives, but Louisa Biron is his favorite, a pretty little girl of 5 years of age. Now, dear Victor, I dare say you wish to be indulged in a little gossip concerning the good people of Geneva. The pretty Miss Mansfield has already received the congratulatory visits on her approaching marriage with a young Englishman, John Melbourne, Esquire. Her ugly sister Manon married Monsieur Duvillard, a rich banker, last autumn. Your favorite schoolfellow, Louis Manoir, has suffered several misfortunes since the departure of Clerval from Geneva. But he has already recovered his spirits and is reported to be on the point of marrying a lively, pretty Frenchwoman, Madame Tavernier. She is a widow and much older than Manoir, but she is very much admired and a favorite with everybody. I have written myself into better spirits, dear cousin, but my anxiety returns upon me as I conclude. Write, dearest Victor. 1 line, 1 word would be a blessing to us. 10,000 thanks to Henry for his kindness, his affection, his many letters. We are sincerely grateful. Adieu, my cousin. Take care of yourself, and I entreat you, write. Elizabeth Lavenza. Geneva, March 18th, 17. Dear, dear Elizabeth, I exclaimed when I had read her letter. I will write instantly and relieve them from the anxiety they must feel. I wrote, and this exertion greatly fatigued me. But my convalescence had commenced and proceeded regularly. In another fortnight I was able to leave my chamber. One of my first duties on my recovery was to introduce Clerval to the several professors of the university. In doing this, underwent a kind of rough usage, ill-befitting the wounds that my mind had sustained. Ever since the fatal night, the end of my labors, and the beginning of my misfortunes, I had conceived a violent antipathy even to the name of natural philosophy. When I was otherwise quite restored to health, the sight of a chemical instrument would renew all the agony of my nervous symptoms. Henry saw this, and had removed all my apparatus from my view. He had also changed my apartment, for he perceived that I had acquired a dislike for the room which had previously been my laboratory. But these cares of Clerval were made of no avail when I visited the professors. Monsieur Waldman inflicted torture when he praised, with kindness and warmth, the astonishing progress I had made in the sciences. He soon perceived that I disliked the subject, but not guessing the real cause, he attributed my feelings to modesty, and changed the subject from my improvement to the science itself. This a desire, as I evidently saw, of drawing me out. I do. He meant to please, and he tormented me. I felt as if he had placed carefully, one by one, in my view those instruments which were to be afterwards used in putting me to a slow and cruel death. I writhed under his words, yet dared not exhibit the pain I felt. Clerval, whose eyes and feelings were always quick in discerning the sensations of others, declined the subject, alleging, in excuse, his total ignorance. And the conversation took a more general turn. I thanked my friend from my heart. I did not speak. I saw plainly that he was surprised, but he never attempted to draw my secret from me. And although I loved him with a mixture of affection and reverence that knew no bounds, yet I could never persuade myself to confide in him, that event which was so often present to my recollection, but which I feared the detail to another would only impress more deeply. Master Krempe was not equally docile, and in my condition at that time of almost insupportable sensitiveness, his harsh, blunt encomiums gave me even more pain than the benevolent approbation of Monsieur Waldman. "Damn the fellow!" cried he. "Aye, Mr. Clerval, I assure you he has outstripped us all. Aye, stand if you please. But it is nevertheless true. A youngster who but a few years ago believed in Cornelius Agrippa as firmly as in the gospel has now set himself at the head of the university. And if he is not soon pulled down, we shall all be out of countenance. Aye, aye," continued he, observing my face expressive of suffering. "Monsieur Frankenstein is modest. An excellent quality in a young man. Young men should be diffident of themselves, you know, Monsieur Clerval. I was myself when young, but that wears out in a very short time." Monsieur Krempe had now commenced a eulogy on himself, which happily turns the conversation from a subject that was so annoying to me. Clerval had never sympathized in my taste for natural science, and his literary pursuits differed wholly from those which had occupied me. He came to the university with the design of making himself complete master of the Oriental languages, and thus he should open a field for the plan of life he had marked out for himself. Resolved to pursue no inglorious career, he turned his eyes towards the east, as affording scope for his spirit of enterprise. The Persian, Arabic, and Sanskrit languages engaged his attention, and I was easily induced to enter on the same studies. Idleness had ever been irksome to me. Now that I wished to fly from reflection, and hated my former studies, I felt great relief in being the fellow pupil with my friend, and found not only instruction, but consolations in the works of the Orientalists. I did not, like him, attempt a critical knowledge of their dialects, for I did not contemplate making any other use of them than temporary amusement. I read merely to understand their meaning, and they well repaid my labors. Their melancholy is soothing, and their joy elevating, to a degree I never experienced in studying the authors of any other country. When you read their writings, life appears to consist in a warm sun and a garden of roses, in the smiles, sounds of a fair enemy, and the fire that consumes your own heart. How different from the manly and heroical poetry of Greece and Rome. Summer passed away in these occupations, and my return to Geneva was fixed for the latter end of autumn. But, being delayed by several accidents, winter and snow arrived. The roads were deemed impassable, and my journey was retarded until the ensuing spring. I felt this delay very bitterly, for I had longed to see my native town and my beloved friends. My return had only been delayed so long, from an unwillingness to leave Clairfall in a strange place, before he had become acquainted with any of its inhabitants. The winter, however, was spent cheerfully, and although the spring was uncommonly late, when it came, its beauty compensated for its dilatoriness. The month of May had already commenced, and I expected the letter daily which was to fix the date of my departure, when Henry proposed a pedestrian tour in the environs of Ingolstadt, that I may bid a personal farewell to the country I had so long inhabited. I acceded with pleasure with this proposition. I was fond of exercise, and Clairval had always been my favourite companion in the ramble of this nature that I had taken among the scenes of my native country. We passed a fortnight in these perambulations. My health and spirits had long been restored, and they gained additional strength from the salubrious air I breathed. The natural incidents of our progress and the conversation Study had before secluded me from intercourse of my fellow creatures and rendered me unsocial. The clever called forth the better feelings of my heart. It again taught me to love the aspect of nature and the cheerful faces of children. Excellent friend, how sincerely you did love me, and endeavor to elevate my mind until it was on a level with your own. A selfish pursuit had cramped and narrowed me. Your gentleness and affection warmed and opened my senses. I became the same happy creature who a few years ago loved and beloved by all, had no sorrow or care. When happy, inanimate nature had the power of bestowing on me the most delightful sensations. Serene sky and verdant fields filled me with ecstasy. The present season was indeed divine. The flowers of spring bloomed in the hedges, while those of summer were already in bud. I was undisturbed by thoughts which during the preceding year had pressed upon me, notwithstanding my endeavors to throw them off. This is an invincible burden. Henry rejoiced in my gaiety and sincerely sympathized in my feelings. He exerted himself to amuse me. He expressed the sensations that filled his soul. The resources of his mind on this occasion were truly astonishing. His conversation was full of imagination, and very often, in imitation of the Persian and Arabic writers, he invented tales of wonderful fancy and passion. At times, he repeated my favorite poems, or drew me out into arguments, which he supported with great ingenuity. We returned to our college on a Sunday afternoon. Peasants were dancing, and everyone we met appeared gay and happy. My own spirits were high, and I bounded along with feelings of unbridled joy and hilarity. All right, we'll take a quick break here. So, he's feeling better, is Senor Clerval. Or I'm sorry, Senor Frankenstein. He's visiting with his friend Clerval, and who has moved into the town, and he's kind of mentally put the monster behind him for now, and he's getting ready to go back home to Geneva. And again, he's put the monster behind him. In fact, the last time he saw the monster was the day it woke up, or the night for that matter. But it woke up. Something seems like it may not go well. Let me take a quick sip here. Also, I need to pull up and see when the next ad is going to be and see if I have enough time to do anything, or how much time we've got till the next ad. Next ad's in like 9 minutes, so we'll chill here for a few minutes. I hope you guys are going to have a good weekend. Do we have anything planned? Yes, we do have something planned, actually. I am, as Mrs. Kahuna has come to say, I'm going to become unfuzzy. Get my trim done, get these fuzzy hair bits gone. That's tomorrow, and then tomorrow night we're going to a hockey game. It's her hometown team versus my hometown team, so we'll be wearing opposite jerseys, and we always have fun at those games. And then Sunday, my second youngest brother is going to be he has a man. Hang on, I need caffeine. My second youngest brother has a pop-up camper trailer that has just been sitting in his driveway for about 3 years now. And he texted me last week and said, do you want it? I said, how much you want? He said, for you, free. So Sunday, I've got a truck scheduled to be rented. We're going to go over, pick that up, bring that back. So that'll be a project for this summer. Also, today I went and scheduled my shoulder surgery. Looking forward to it. Actually, I am. Because after I've recovered from that, my shoulder will be back to where I can use it. Because right now, it's not good. That's going to be right at the beginning of April. So about a little over a month from now. Hey, Magpie! Woohoo! How you doing? I put Magpie in there. Pretty sure I have magpies. But you now go by Dragon. Nope, it's all lowercase. Love butter. When I have the surgery, I'll still be streaming. It's going to probably change up a bit because I don't know what games I'll be able to play on the Kahuna Play streams. Kahuna Works will be a little different. I may be testing out some speech to text stuff so I can write or do something. Because for at least 4 weeks, this arm is going to be pinned to my body. It'll be in a sling, and the sling actually straps around the back, so I can't use my shoulder. And that'll be for about 4 weeks. We're going on homework and playing the new Monster Hunter. Is that Monster Hunter Wilds? I don't have that one. But yeah, so it'll be interesting over the next, like I said, I've got about a month where streaming isn't affected, and then the effect happens. Welcome, Stretch! Hey, Stretch, I don't remember what your walk-on was. I figured out a way to get him to start working. I should also unmute now. There we go. Those sound effects are back on. Yours was the Monty Python. Was yours the bad boy one? Oh, he's not the Messiah, yes. Not the Messiah. You've been a very bad boy. Yes, I have that one. I have to activate that one. I have started making it work. I found a very easy way for me to make it work. So, brother got it for me because he has no self-control. See, I'm the one who has the monetary self-control. So when money comes in... Wait a minute, Magpie, did you just... Wait... Magpie, are you watching on both? Having a conversation with yourself. I love it. Yeah, I'm the one who pays all the bills and everything. So when Mrs. Kahuna gets paid, she takes her cut. Because, she gets a cut of her check. That's, and, a significant one. It's not small. It's not like, it's a good chunk of her check. And then I get the rest and I pay bills. So I get to control. And out of those bills, if I can sneak a few bucks, then, I buy myself something. But if not, also checking for the watcher. Thank you, Stretch. Thank you. Yeah, I got the YouTube working finally, so that's okay. So that's the way that works. So what do we got here? Till the ad, another 4 minutes till the ad. Still need to use one on my About Me page. Let me find my YouTube link. I wonder if I can change my name yet. Picture's name, Kahuna the Elder. Handle. Let me see if it's going to let me have it. Publish. It did. Awesome. Boost the algorithm. So, the official link then. That's my YouTube link. Thing I like so when I say I made things easier, what I did was I changed the bot that I'm using. I'm slowly changing it over, and I'm now using StreamerBot, and StreamerBot is like really powerful, a lot more powerful than anything else I've been using, including the stuff I wrote myself, because a lot of stuff I wrote myself I can do with StreamerBot. That's how I'm getting back all the walk-ons, everything else. How much better? Honestly, I'm about to spend my paycheck on Kickstarter. Yeah, I give myself like $20-$30 a month. You know, I think I make like 5 or 6 on Twitch or something stupid like that. So that pays for some of it. Technically, it pays for the subscriptions I have on Twitch. So, minute and a half to the ad. After the ad, since nobody has put anything in yet, you want something, go to my Discord. And drop it in there so I can read it. Otherwise, I go for another chapter of Frankenstein. Oh, and Stretch, the Discord command works, but I added something to it. I also have a MIDI controller. It's a bunch of push buttons that are, normally you use them for like controlling digital audio workstation, stuff like that. Well, that's another thing the StreamerBot does. I actually have buttons for things now. So I have a button for the Discord link. I don't have to type anymore, but the command still works. So, yeah. It also completely blank on assignment turned in for a drive. Ooh. Yeah, I'm using it like a Stream Deck. Yeah. It's cool. I've got buttons. I can do, for example, background sounds. So I have different background sounds for raids and followers and stuff like that, which I created my own things for. But I can mute them all with one button. It still allows my mic to go. It still allows the background sound to go, the music. But it also, it mutes the other sounds, and it actually says sound effects muted at the top, and then push the button back and everything comes back to life. So I'm kind of using it. I am using it like a Stream Deck. It's pretty awesome. Are we in the ad? Not yet. Are we not in the ad? Ad starting soon. Yeah, I like that Stretch. I like that quote. And yeah, I'll be fixing quotes, and there'll be a way to add quotes in. Yeah, now it says ad starting soon. There it goes. So if you are a subscriber, you can still hear me. Hi. And I'm still watching to see if anybody drops anything in. Yeah, so I'm slowly. I actually just installed StreamerBot last night. Last night? Yeah, was last night and was learning how to make things work in it. I also had to teach myself DaVinci Resolve. So DaVinci Resolve was a That was a learning curve. That was about 10 hours of learning curve. Lots of going back to YouTube videos and learning how different things work. I had been using HitFilm, but HitFilm is no longer supported. They are shutting it down. So I went to DaVinci Resolve, the free version, and started using that. You are a dumbass. Yeah, Resolve has it, but it's some powerful stuff once you figure it out. Nodes were the things that were throwing me off. The stuff I'm using it right now for is for different, yeah, I like Resolve a lot now that I understand it. I use it for I created a new starting soon screen. I had gone through and I had one of the starting soon screens that I had created in the past. I actually manually put in countdown numbers, and that was driving me nuts. Now it is CapCut. DaVinci Resolve works for the short form stuff too. It might be, I've never used CapCut, so I don't know if it's quicker, easier. I have no concept of that, but I like Resolve. I've gotten used to it. It is similar in many ways to what HitFilm used to be, but it's more powerful, and there's a whole lot more filters and effects you can add to things, and a lot more manipulation you can do, which is really cool. So I was able to create 3D lettering with extrusions and the whole 9 yards, and built-in format for YouTube Shorts. Yeah. Resolve's got the YouTube straight up video. Haven't seen if they have the Shorts one yet. And I'm not doing a whole lot of Shorts yet. All right, ad break is finishing. All right, a little more caffeine. Let's see. I wanted to have this up. I'm gonna put it over here so I can see everything. All right, nobody has put anything for me to read. Everybody's being shy today. So, minute here. We'll start with chapter 7. Get my waiting screens in Canva. Okay, so I'm gonna pop into the starting soon screen just so you guys can see it. I'm not going offline, but just so you guys can see it. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah, so those are all. I think it's 3 videos in there. It's like there's the base one that comes up. There's the lettering at the bottom, and then the countdown, and it's a half-hour timer. And the nice thing about it is I don't have to start it at the half hour. Sometimes I forget to start the stream. Well, because of the way I created it, I can actually just drag the slider in OBS, the play slider for the countdown numbers, to where it is. So like today, I started it at about 20 till. So I just slided it over till there were 20 minutes left. Bingo. So it's nice and easy to use. Yeah, it makes it very simple. It was something I wanted to do because I have that problem where it's like, I had it set to 15. No idea how to do what? The countdown or sliding the timers. I can show you the sliding the timer one. As for the countdown clock, the countdown clock, you play a lot with nodes, but I found a couple of YouTube videos. It's really once you have figured out the nodes, it's super easy. It's basically a text field, but instead of text, you can do a drop down and set it to time code. Then you run that through the 3D renderer, and then you add a time split, I think it is. I think it's a time split or time something, time scale maybe. And instead of it going up by 1, you set it to -1, and it automatically counts down from the time code. And then you just set your time code format. It's awesome. It's awesome. And of course, because of the way you do that, if you do that right, then all you do is set the length of that fusion clip to the length that you want for your countdown. So you stretch it out to 30 minutes, it's 30 minutes. If you knock it down to 15 minutes or a minute, it automatically adjusts the countdown timer. It's awesome because it'll count down to 0 at the end every time. Okay, enough about Fusion and DaVinci. Trying to talk Sable into using Resolve for a couple of years, still working on. The only thing with Resolve is, and I know Sable's had this issue before, is that it can be pretty processor intensive. I mean, I just got a new machine with, not the newest generation of GPU. It's a 4060. And I got to tell you, it still takes to render just that 30-minute countdown video with not a whole lot else going on. There's not a whole lot of changes. There's like a flame that comes up occasionally, but it takes over an hour to render. So, and that's with a really good video card. I can't imagine what it is on a slower machine. I mean, it would take hours to render that. Even the little, I've got like little 30-second clips here for stuff. Those can take 4 or 5 minutes on this machine. Edited stream takes roughly an hour. Yeah, it depends on how it all depends on how long the edited version is. But yeah, it can take quite some time. So I would get why Sable would not necessarily want to use it, because if they're still using that same machine, it could be going to be slow, Jack. All right, let's do chapter 7. What time is it now? Just about 3 o'clock. Yeah, let's do chapter 7. On my return, I found the following letter from my father. My dear Victor, you have probably waited impatiently for a letter to fix the date of your return to us. And I have attempted at first to write only a few lines, merely mentioning the day on which I would expect you. But that would be a cruel kindness, and I dare not do it. What would be your surprise, my son, when you expected a happy and glad welcome, to behold, on the contrary, tears and wretchedness? And how, Victor, can I relate our misfortune? Absence cannot have rendered you callous to our joys and griefs. And how shall I inflict pain on my long-absent son? I wish to prepare you for the woeful news, but I know it is impossible. Even now your eye skims over the page to seek the words which are to convey you the horrible tidings. William is dead. That sweet child whose smiles delighted and warmed my heart, who was so gentle yet so gay. Victor, he is murdered. I will not attempt to console you, but will simply relate the circumstances of the transaction. Last Thursday, May 7th, I, my niece, and your 2 brothers went to walk in Plain Palais. The evening was warm and serene, and we prolonged our walk farther than usual. It was already dusk before we thought of returning, and when we discovered that William and Ernest, who had gone on before, were not to be found, we accordingly rested on a seat. Until they should return. Presently Ernest came and inquired if we had seen his brother. He said that he had been playing with him, that William had run away to hide himself, and that he vainly sought for him. Afterwards, waited for a long time, but that he did not return. This account rather alarmed us, as we continued to search for him until night fell, when Elizabeth conjectured that he might have returned to the house. He was not there. We returned again with torches, for I could not rest. When I thought of
that my sweet boy had lost himself and was exposed to all the damps and dews of night. Elizabeth also suffered extreme anguish. About 5 in the morning I discovered my lovely boy, whom the night before I had seen blooming and active in health, stretched on the grass, livid and motionless. The print of the murderer's finger was on his neck. He was conveyed home, and the anguish that was visible in my countenance betrayed the secret to Elizabeth. She was very earnest to see the corpse. At first I tried to prevent her, but she persisted, and entered the room where it lay, hastily examined the neck of the victim, and clasping her hands exclaimed, "Oh God, I have murdered my darling child!" She fainted and was restored with extreme difficulty. When she again lived, it was only to weep and sigh. She told me that the same evening William had teased her to let him wear a very valuable miniature that she possessed of your mother. This picture is gone, and was doubtless the temptation which urged the murderer to this deed. We have no trace of him at present, although our exertions to discover him are unremitted. But they will not restore my beloved William. Come, dearest Victor, you alone can console Elizabeth. She weeps continually, and accuses herself unjustly as the cause of his death. Her words pierce my heart. We are all unhappy, but will not that be an additional motive for you, my son, to return and be our comforter? Your dear mother, alas, Victor, I now say, thank God she did not live to witness the cruel, miserable death of her youngest darling. Come, Victor, not brooding thoughts of vengeance against the assassin, but with feelings of peace and gentleness that will heal instead of festering the wounds of our minds. Enter the house of mourning, my friend, but with kindness and affection for those who love you, and not with hatred for your enemies. Your affectionate and afflicted father, Alphonse Frankenstein. Geneva, May 12, 17. Clerval, who had watched my countenance as I read this letter, was surprised to observe the despair that succeeded the joy I first expressed on receiving news from my friends. I threw the letter on the table and covered my face with my hands. "My dear Frankenstein," exclaimed Henry, when he perceived me weep with bitterness, "are you always to be unhappy? My dear friend, what has happened?" I motioned him to take up the letter while I walked up and down the room in the extremest agitation. Tears also gushed from the eyes of Clerval as he read the account of my misfortune. "I can offer you no consolation, my friend," said he. "Your disaster is irreparable. What do you intend to do?" "To go instantly to Geneva. Come with me, Henry. Order the horses." During our walk, Clerval endeavored to say a few words of consolation. He could only express his heartfelt sympathy. "Oh, William," said he, "dear lovely child, he now sleeps with his angel mother. Who that had seen him bright and joyous in his young beauty, but must weep over his untimely loss? Die so miserably, feel the murderer's grasp. How much more a murder that could destroy radiant innocence? Poor little fellow, only one consolation have we. His friends mourn and weep, but he is at rest. The pang is over, his sufferings are at an end forever. A sword covers his gentle form, and he knows no pain. He can no longer be a subject for pity. We must reserve that for his miserable survivors." Clerval spoke thus as we hurried through the streets. The words impressed themselves on my mind, and I remembered them afterwards in solitude. But now, as soon as the horses arrived, I hurried into a cabriolet and bade farewell to my friend. My journey was very melancholy. At first I wished to hurry on, for I longed to console and sympathize with my loved and sorrowing friends. When I drew near my native town, I slackened my progress. I could hardly sustain the multitude of feelings that crowded into my mind. I passed through scenes familiar to my youth, but which I had not seen for nearly 6 years. How altered everything be during that time! One sudden and desolating change had taken place, but 1,000 little circumstances might have by degrees worked other alterations which, although they were done more tranquilly, might not be so less decisive. Fear overcame me. I dared no advance, dreading 1,000 nameless evils that made me tremble, although I was unable to define them. I remained 2 days at Lausanne. In this painful state of mind, I contemplated the lake. The waters were placid, all around was calm. In its snowy mountains, the palaces of nature were not changed. By degrees, the calm and heavenly scene restored me, and I continued my journey towards Geneva. The road ran by the side of the lake, which became narrower as I approached my native town. I discovered more distinctly the black sides of Jura and the bright summit of Mont Blanc. I wept like a child. Dear mountains, my own beautiful lake, how do you welcome your wanderer? Your summers are clear. The sky and lake are blue and placid. Is this to prognosticate peace? To mock at my unhappiness? I fear, my friend, that I shall render myself tedious by dwelling on these preliminary circumstances, but save us the days of comparative happiness. I think of them with pleasure. Country, my beloved country. Who but a native can tell the delight I took in again beholding thy streams, thy mountains, and more than all? Yet, as I drew nearer near home, grief and fear again overcame me. Night also closed around, and when I could hardly see the dark mountains, I felt still more gloomily. The picture appeared a vast and dim scene of evil, and I foresaw obscurely that I was destined to become the most wretched of human beings. Alas, I prophesied truly, and failed only in one circumstance, that in all the misery I imagined and dreaded, I did not conceive the 100th part of the anguish I was destined to endure. It was completely dark when I arrived in the environs of Geneva. The gates of this town were already shut, and I was obliged to pass the night at Sacheron, a village at a distance of half a league from the city. The sky was serene, and as I was unable to rest, I resolved to visit the spot where my poor William had been murdered. As I could not pass through the town, I was obliged to cross the lake in a boat to arrive at Plain Palais. During the short voyage, I saw the lightning playing on the summit of Mont Blanc in the most beautiful figures. The storm appeared to approach rapidly, and on landing, I ascended a low hill that I might observe its progress. It advanced. The heavens were clouded, and I soon felt the rain coming slowly in large drops, but its violence quickly increased. I quitted my seat and walked on, although the darkness and storm increased every minute, and the thunder burst with a terrific crash over my head. It was echoed from Salève, the Juras, the Alps of Savoy. Vivid flashes of lightning dazzled my eyes, illuminating the lake, making it appear like a vast sheet of fire. And then, for an instant, everything seemed of a pitchy darkness, until the eye recovered itself from the preceding flash. The storm, as is often the case in Switzerland, appeared at once in various parts of the heavens. The most violent storm hung exactly north of the town, over the part of the lake which lies between the promontory of Belle-Rive and the village of Coppet. Another storm enlightened Jura with faint flashes, and another darkened and sometimes disclosed Simol, a peaked mountain to the east of the lake. I watched the tempest, yet so beautiful, yet terrific. I wandered on with a hasty step. This noble war in the sky elevated my spirits. I clasped my hands and exclaimed out loud, "William, dear angel, this is thy funeral, this thy dirge!" Said these words, I perceived in the gloom a figure, which stole from behind a clump of trees near me. I stood fixed, listening intently. I could not be mistaken. A flash of lightning illuminated the object and discovered its shape plainly to me. Its gigantic stature, the deformity of its aspect more hideous than belongs to humanity, instantly informed me that it was the wretch, the filthy demon to whom I had given life. What did he dare? Could he be, I shuddered at the conception, the murderer of my brother? No sooner did that idea cross my imagination than I became convinced of its truth. My teeth chattered. I was forced to lean against the tree for support. The figure passed me quickly, and I lost it in the gloom. Nothing in human shape could have destroyed the fair child. He was the murderer. I could not doubt it. The mere presence of the idea was an irresistible proof of the fact. I thought of pursuing the devil. It would have been in vain, for another flash discovered him to me hanging among the rocks of the nearly perpendicular ascent of Mount Salève, a hill that bounds Plain Palais on the south. He soon reached the summit and disappeared. Remained motionless. The thunder ceased. The rain still continued, and the scene was enveloped in an impenetrable darkness. I revolved in my mind the events which I had until now sought to forget. The whole train of my progress towards the creation. The appearance of the works of my own hands at my bedside, its departure. 2 years had now nearly elapsed since the night on which he first received life. Was this his first crime? Thus, I had turned loose into the world a depraved wretch whose delight was in carnage and misery. Had he not murdered my brother? No one can conceive the anguish I suffered during the remainder of the night, which I spent cold and wet in the open air. I did not feel the inconvenience of the weather. My imagination was busy in scenes of evil and despair. I considered the being whom I had cast among mankind and endowed with the will and power to effect purposes of horror, such the deed which he had done now, nearly in the light of my own vampire, my own spirit let loose from the grave, and forced to destroy all that was dear to me. Day dawned. I directed my steps towards the town. The gates were opened, and I hastened to my father's house. My first thought was to discover what I knew of the murderer, and cause instant pursuit to be made. I paused when I reflected on the story I had to tell. Being whom I myself had formed and endued with life, had met me at midnight among the precipices of an inaccessible mountain. I remembered also the nervous fever with which I had been seized just at the time that I dated my creation, and which would give an air of delirium to a tale otherwise so utterly improbable. I well knew that if any other had communicated such a relation to me, I should have looked upon it as the ravings of insanity. Besides, the strange nature of the animal would elude all pursuit, even if I was so far credited as to persuade my relatives to commence it. And then, what use would be pursuit? Who could arrest a creature capable of scaling the overhanging sides of Mount Salève? These reflections determined me, and I resolved to remain silent. It was about 5 in the morning when I entered this house. I told the servants not to disturb the family and went to the library to attend their usual hour of rising. 6 years had elapsed, passed in a dream but for one indelible trace. And I stood in the same place where I had last embraced my father before my departure for Ingolstadt. Beloved and venerable parent, he still remained to me. I gazed on the picture of my mother, which stood over the mantelpiece. It was an historical subject, painted at my father's desire, and represented Caroline Beaufort, in an agony of despair, kneeling by the coffin of her dead father. Her garb was rustic, her cheek pale, but there was an air of dignity and beauty that hardly permitted the sentiment of pity. Lowe's picture was a miniature of William. My tears flowed when I looked upon it. While I was thus engaged, Ernest entered. He had heard me arrive and hastened to welcome me. "Welcome, my dearest Victor," said he. "Ah, I wish you had come 3 months ago, and then you would have found us all joyous and delighted. You come to us now to share a misery which none can alleviate. Yet your presence will, I hope, revive our father, who seems sinking under his misfortune. And your persuasions will induce poor Elizabeth to cease her vain and tormenting self-accusations. Poor William! He was our darling and our pride." Tears unrestrained fell from my brother's eyes. A sense of mortal agony crept over my frame. Before, I had only imagined the wretchedness of my desolated home. Reality came on me as a new and not less terrible disaster. I tried to calm Ernest. I inquired more minutely concerning my father. Here I named my cousin. "She, most of all," said Ernest, "requires consolation. She accused herself of having caused the death of my brother, and that made her very wretched. But since the murderer has been discovered—" "The murderer discovered? Good God! How can that be? Who could attempt to pursue him? It is impossible. One might as well try to overtake the winds or confine a mountain stream with a straw. I saw him too. He was free last night." "I do not know what you mean," replied my brother, in accents of wonder. "But to this, the discovery we have made completes our misery. No one would believe it at first, but even now Elizabeth would not be convinced, notwithstanding all the evidence. Indeed, who would credit that Justine Moritz, who was so amiable and fond of all the family, could suddenly become so capable of so frightful, so appalling a crime?" "Justine Moritz? Poor girl, is she accused?" "But it is wrongfully. Everyone knows that. Everyone believes it. Surely, Ernest." "No one did at first. But several circumstances came out that have almost forced conviction upon us. And her own behavior has been so confused as to add to the evidence of facts a weight that, I fear, leaves no hope for doubt. But she will be tried today, and then you will hear all." He then related that the morning on which the murderer poor William had discovered, Justine had been taken ill and confined to her bed for several days. During this interval, one of the servants, happening to examine the apparel she had worn on the night of the murder, had discovered in her pocket the picture of my mother, which had been judged to be the temptation of the murderer. The servant instantly showed it to one of the others, who, without saying a word to any of the family, went on to a magistrate, and upon their deposition, Justine was apprehended. On being charged with the fact, the poor girl confirms the suspicion in a great measure by her extreme confusion of manner. This was a strange tale, but it did not shake my faith. And I replied earnestly, "You are all mistaken. I know the murderer. Justine, poor good Justine, is innocent." As that instant my father entered, I saw unhappiness deeply impressed on his countenance, and he endeavored to welcome me cheerfully. And after we had exchanged our mournful greeting, would have introduced some other topic other than that of our disaster, had not Ernest exclaimed, "Good God, Papa! Victor says he knows who was the murderer of poor William." "We do also, unfortunately," replied my father. "For indeed I had rather have been forever ignorant than have discovered so much depravity and ingratitude in one I valued so highly." "My dear father, you are mistaken. Justine is innocent." "If she is, God forbid that she should suffer as guilty. She is to be tried today, and I sincerely hope, that she will be acquitted." This speech calmed me. I was firmly convinced in my own mind that Justine, and indeed every human being, was guiltless of this murder. I had no fear, therefore, that any circumstantial evidence could be brought forward strong enough to convict her. My tale was not one to announce publicly. Its astounding horror would be looked upon as madness by the vulgar. Did anyone indeed exist, except I, the Creator, who would believe, unless his senses convinced him in the existence of the living monument of presumption and rash ignorance which I had let loose upon the world? She was soon joined by Elizabeth. Time had halted her since I had last beheld her. It had endowed her with loveliness surpassing the beauty of her childish years. There was the same candor, the same vivacity. It was allied to an expression more full of sensibility and intellect. She welcomed me with the greatest affection. "Your arrival, dear cousin," said she, "fills me with hope. You perhaps will find some means to justify my poor guiltless Justine? Alas, who is safe if she be convicted of crime? I rely on her innocence as certainly as I do upon my own. Our misfortune is doubly hard to us. We have not only lost that lovely darling boy, but this poor girl who I sincerely love is to be torn away by even a worse fate. If she is condemned, I shall never know joy more. But she will not, as I am sure she will not. Then shall be happy again, even after the sad death of my little William."
"She is innocent, my Elizabeth. Aye, and it shall be proved. Fear nothing, but let your spirits again be cheered by the assurance of her acquittal."
"How kind and generous you are. Everyone else believes in her guilt. That made me wretched, for I knew that was impossible. And to see everyone else prejudiced in so deadly a manner rendered me hopeless and despairing." She wept.
"Dearest niece," said my father, "dry your tears. If she is, as you believe, innocent, rely on the justice of our laws and the activity which I shall prevent the slightest shadow of partiality." All right. So, Victor has seen the monster now in the wild 2 years later, and he's convinced. Killed his brother. But what of this young lady who had the locket that was on the brother? Why would she have it? Is Victor right? Or is the town right? What shall they do about this? We find that out in the next chapter. We got an ad coming up here in a little less than 2 minutes. And Icy, welcome. Dragon. That's Magpie. Draft and Draft Light for the same project. I am Victor. Do you dread looking upon your creation? I would make it like Victor. Is your creation going to destroy the world, as Victor believes? Man, I hope not. All right. So as we go into the ad, if you have something you would like me to read, we got a minute till the ad. If you have something you'd like me to read, put it in the Discord, and I will be happy to read it. Otherwise, we'll go to chapter 8 after the ad break. And once we start the ad, I am going to imbibe some more caffeine. This is one of those circle cartridges. This is white cherry energy drink infused with caffeine, I think taurine. Let's look. It's caffeine, antioxidants, and B vitamins. What is sucralose, caffeine, phosphorus. Taurine, guarana, green tea. So yeah, 0 calories, no sodium, and lots of other stuff. Want to edit my homework later. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to edit your homework? You're going to edit your homework? Don't cry. Don't cry. I'm frozen. I shouldn't be frozen. Let me check. That's nope, not my end. Oh, it's probably the ad. Or at least the one that's about to start. All right. Get that. You know what I can do? In the meantime, during this ad break, I can fix a few things. Dang it, I hit the wrong button again. All right. At that, and we're going to walk on. And stretch. Those are the walk-ons. Okay. Edit trigger. And stretch. And now I have to set the media source. Edit. Source. Let's try. That's really quick. Let's try Stretch's walk on. Okay. It's not. Why not working? What did I do wrong? Okay, that's right. Oh. Didn't enable it. That's why. Still no. What am I missing?
Now you listen here. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
Well, I heard it.
Now you listen here. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Now go away.
There he is. Oh, let's see. Who else do I know I have? Well, I could probably do Magpies. It's reading off of Twitch, so... Oh, ad break's finishing. So much for my 3 minutes. All right, I got one added. All right. Looks like the ad break is done. Excuse me. Don't have anything in the read queue, so it's time. All right. Chapter 8 of Frankenstein. We passed a few sad hours until 11 o'clock, when the trial was to commence. My father and the rest of the family being obliged to attend as witnesses, I accompanied them to the court. During the whole of this wretched mockery of justice, I suffered living torture. It was to be decided whether the result of my curiosity and lawless devices would cause the death of my two fellow beings, one a smiling babe full of innocence and joy, the other far more dreadfully murdered, with every aggravation of infamy that could make the murder memorable in horror. Justine was also a girl of merit, and possessed qualities which promised to render her life happy. Now, all was to be obliterated in an ignominious grave, and I the cause. 1,000 times rather I would have confessed myself guilty of the crime,
described to Justine. I was absent when it was committed. And such a declaration would have been considered as the ravings of a madman and would not have exculpated her who suffered through me. The appearance of Justine was calm. She was dressed in mourning, and her countenance, always engaging, was rendered by the solemnity of her feelings exquisitely beautiful. Yet she appeared confident in innocence and did not tremble, although gazed on and execrated by thousands. All the kindness which her beauty might otherwise have excited was obliterated in the minds of the spectators by the imagination of the enormity she was supposed to have committed. She was tranquil, but her tranquillity was evidently constrained, and as her confusion had before her adduced as a proof of her guilt, she worked up her mind to an appearance of courage. When she entered the court, she threw her eyes round it and quickly discovered us where we were seated. A tear seemed to dim her eye when she saw us, but she quickly recovered herself, and a look of sorrowful affection seemed to attest her utter guiltlessness. The trial began, and after the advocate against her had stated the charge, several witnesses were called. Several strange facts combined against her, which might have staggered anyone, were not such proof of her innocence as I had. She had been out the whole of the night on which the murder had been committed, and towards morning had been perceived by a market woman, not far from the spot where the body of the murdered child had afterwards been found. The woman asked her what she did there. She looked very strangely and only returned a confused and unintelligible answer. She returned to the house about 8 o'clock, and when one inquired where she had passed the night, she replied that she had been looking for the child and demanded earnestly if anything had been heard concerning him. When shown the body, she fell into violent hysterics and kept her bed for several days. The picture was then produced, which the servant had found in her pocket, and when Elizabeth, in a faltering voice, proved that it was the same which, all before the child had missed, she had placed round his neck, a murmur of horror and indignation filled the court. Justine was called on for her defense. As the trial had proceeded, her countenance had altered. Surprise, horror, and misery were strongly expressed. Sometimes she struggled with her tears, but when she was desired to plead, she collected her powers and spoke in an inaudible, though variable voice. "God knows," she said, how entirely I am innocent. I do not pretend that my protestations should acquit me. I rest my innocence on a plain and simple explanation of the facts which have been adduced against me, and I hope the character I have always borne will incline my judges to a favorable interpretation where any circumstance appears doubtful or suspicious. She then related that by the permission of Elizabeth she had passed the evening on the night on which the murder had been committed at the house of an aunt at Chêne, a village situated at about a league from Geneva. On her return about 9 o'clock, she met a man who asked her if she had seen anything of the child who was lost. She was alarmed by this account and passed several hours in looking for him. When the gates of Geneva were shut, she was forced to remain several hours of the night in a barn belonging to a cottage, being unwilling to call up the inhabitants, to whom she was well known. Most of the night she spent here watching. Towards morning she believed that she slept for a few minutes. Some steps disturbed her, and she awoke. It was dawn, and she quitted her asylum, that she might again endeavor to find my brother. If she had gone near the spot where his body lay, it was without her knowledge. That she had been bewildered when questioned by the market woman was not surprising, since she had passed a sleepless night. The fate of poor William was yet uncertain. Concerning the picture, she could give no account. "I know," continued the unhappy victim, "how heavily and fatally this one circumstance weighs against me, but I have no power of explaining it. And when I have expressed my utter ignorance, I am only left to conjecture concerning the probabilities by which it might have been placed in my pocket. But here I am also checked. I believe that I have no enemy on earth, and none surely would have been so wicked as to destroy me wantonly. Did the murderer place it there? I know of no opportunity afforded him for doing so. Or, if I had, why should he have stolen the jewel to part with it again so soon? I commit my cause to the justice of my judges. Yet I see no room for hope. I beg permission to have a few witnesses examined concerning my character, and if the testimony shall not overweigh my supposed guilt, I must be condemned, although I would pledge my salvation, my innocence. Several witnesses were called who had known her for many years, and they spoke well of her, but fear and hatred of the crime of which they supposed her guilty rendered them timorous and unwilling to come forward. Elizabeth saw even this last resource, her excellent dispositions and irreproachable conduct, about to fail the accused, and although violently agitated, she desired permission to address the court. "I am," said she, "the cousin of the unhappy child who was murdered, or rather his sister. For I was educated by and have lived with his parents ever since, and even long before his birth. It may therefore be judged indecent in me to come forward on this occasion, but when I see a fellow creature about to perish through the cowardice of her pretended friends, I wish to be allowed to speak, that I may say what I know of her character. I am well acquainted with the accused. I have lived in the same house with her, at one time for 5 and another for nearly 2 years. During all that period she appeared to me as the most amiable and benevolent of human creatures. She nursed Madame Frankenstein, my aunt, in her last illness, with the greatest affection and care, and afterwards attended her own mother during a tedious illness, in a manner that excited the admiration of all who knew her, after which she again lived in my uncle's house, where she was beloved by all the family. She was warmly attached to the child who is now dead, acted toward him a most affectionate mother. I, for my own part, do not hesitate to say that notwithstanding all the evidence produced against her, I believe and rely on her perfect innocence. She had no temptation for such an action as to the bauble on which the chief proofs rest. If she had earnestly desired it, I should have willingly given it to her. So much do I esteem and value her." A murmur of approbation followed Elizabeth's simple and powerful appeal. It was excited by her generous interference, and not in favor of poor Justine, on whom the public indignation was turned with renewed violence, charging her with the blackest ingratitude. She herself wept as Elizabeth spoke, but she did not answer. My own agitation and anguish was extreme during the whole trial. I believed in her innocence. I knew it. Could the demon who had, I did not for a minute doubt, murdered my brother also in this hellish sport have betrayed the innocents to death and ignominy? I could not sustain the horror of my situation, and when I perceived that the popular voice and the countenance of the judges had already condemned my unhappy victim, I rushed out of the court in agony. The tortures of the accused did not equal mine. She was sustained by innocence, but the fangs of remorse tore my bosom, and I would not forego their hold. I passed a night of unmingled wretchedness. In the morning I went to the court. My lips and throat were parched. I dared not ask the fatal question, but I was known. The officer guessed the cause of my visit. The ballots had been thrown. They were all black. Justine was condemned. I cannot pretend to describe what I then felt. I had before experienced sensations of horror. I have endeavored to bestow upon them adequate expressions, but words cannot convey an idea of the heart-sickening despair that I then endured. The person to whom I addressed myself added that Justine had already confessed her guilt. "That evidence," he observed, "was hardly required in so glaring a case, but I am glad of it. And indeed, none of our judges like to condemn a criminal upon circumstantial evidence, be it ever so decisive." This was strange and unexpected intelligence. What could it mean? Had my eyes deceived me? And was I really as mad as the whole world would believe me to be if I disclosed the object of my suspicions? I hastened to return home, and Elizabeth eagerly demanded the result. "My cousin," replied I. "It is decided, as you may have expected. All judges had rather that 10 innocent should suffer, but that one guilty should escape. But she has confessed." This was a dire blow to poor Elizabeth, who had relied with firmness upon Justine's innocence. "Alas," she said, "how shall I ever again believe in human goodness? Justine, whom I loved and esteemed as my sister, how could she put on those smiles of innocence only to betray? Her mild eyes seemed incapable of any severity or guile, and yet she has committed a murder." Soon after, we heard that the poor victim had expressed a desire to see my cousin. My father wished her not to go, but said that he left it to her own judgment and feelings to decide. "Yes," said Elizabeth, "I will go, although she is guilty, and you, Victor, shall accompany me. I cannot go alone." The idea of this visit was torture to me, yet I could not refuse. We entered the gloomy prison chamber and beheld Justine sitting on some straw at the farther end. Her hands were manacled, and her head rested on her knees. She rose on seeing us enter, and when we were left alone with her, she threw herself at the feet of Elizabeth, weeping bitterly. Cousin wept also. "Oh, Justine," said she, "why did you rob me of my last consolation? I relied on your innocence, and now, although I was very wretched, I was not so miserable as I am now." "Do you believe that I am so very, very wicked? Do you also join with my enemies to crush me? Condemn me as a murderer?" Her voice was suffocated with sobs. "Rise, my poor girl," said Elizabeth. "Why do you kneel if you are innocent? I am not one of your enemies. I believed you guiltless, notwithstanding every evidence, until I heard that you had yourself declared your guilt. That report, you say, is false. And be assured, dear Justine, that nothing can shake my confidence in you for a moment but your own confession." I didn't confess. I confessed a lie. I confessed that I might obtain absolution, but now that falsehood lies heavier at my heart than all my other sins. God of heaven, forgive me. Ever since I was condemned, my confessor has besieged me. He threatened and menaced until I almost began to think that I was the monster that he said I was. He threatened excommunication and hellfire in my last moments if I continued obdurate. Lady, I had none to support me. All looked on me as a wretch, doomed to ignominy and perdition. What could I do? In an evil hour I subscribed to a lie. Now, only am I truly miserable. He paused, weeping, and then continued. I thought with horror, my sweet lady, you should believe your Justine, whom your blessed aunt had so highly honored, and whom you loved, as a creature capable of a crime which none but the devil himself could have perpetrated. Dear William, dearest blessed child, we shall soon see you again in heaven, where we shall all be happy. And that consoles me, going as I am to suffer ignominy and death. Oh, Justine, forgive me for having one moment distrusted you. Why did you confess? But do not mourn, dear girl. Do not fear. I will proclaim, I will prove your innocence. I will melt the stony hearts of your enemies by my tears and prayers. You shall not die. You, my playfellow, my companion, my sister, perish on the scaffold. No, I could never survive so horrible a misfortune. Justine shook her head mournfully. Do not fear to die. Then that pang has passed. God raises my weakness, gives me courage to endure the worst. I leave a sad and bitter world. If you remember me and think of me as one unjustly condemned, I am resigned to the fate awaiting me. Learn from me, dear lady. Submit in patience to the will of heaven.
During this conversation, I had retired to a corner of the prison room, where I could conceal the horrid anguish that possessed me. Despair. Who dared talk of that? As a poor victim who on the morrow was to pass the awful boundary between life and death felt not, as I did, such deep and bitter agony. I gnashed my teeth and ground them together, uttering a groan that came from my inmost soul. Justine started. When she saw who it was, she approached me and said, "Sir, you are very kind to visit me. You, I hope, do not believe that I am guilty." Could not answer. "No, Justine," said Elizabeth. "He is more convinced of your innocence than I was. For even when he heard that you had confessed, he did not credit it. I truly thank him. These last moments I feel the sincerest gratitude towards those who think of me with kindness. How sweet is the affection of others to such a wretch as am I. It removes more than half my misfortune. I feel as if I could die in peace, now that my innocence is acknowledged by you, dear lady, and your cousin." Thus, the poor sufferer tried to comfort others and herself. She indeed gained the resignation she desired. But I, the true murderer, felt the never-dying worm alive in my bosom, which allowed of no hope or consolation. Elizabeth also wept and was unhappy. Hers also was the misery of innocence, which, like a cloud that passes over the fair moon, for a while hides, but cannot tarnish its brightness. Anguish and despair had penetrated into the core of my heart. I bore a hell within me which nothing could extinguish. We stayed several hours with Justine, and it was with great difficulty Elizabeth could tear her away. "I wish," cried she, "that I were to die with you. I cannot live in this world of misery." Justine assumed an air of cheerfulness, while she with difficulty repressed her bitter tears. She embraced Elizabeth, and said in a voice of half-suppressed emotion, "Farewell, sweet lady, dearest Elizabeth, my beloved and only friend. May heaven, in its bounty, bless and preserve you. May this be the last misfortune you will ever suffer. Live, be happy, make others so." And on the morrow, Justine died. Elizabeth's heart-rending eloquence failed to move the judges from their settled conviction in the criminality of the saintly sufferer. My passionate and indignant appeals fell lost upon them, and I received their cold answers and heard the harsh, unfeeling reasoning of these men. My purposed avowal died away on my lips. Thus, I might proclaim myself a madman, but not revoke the sentence passed upon my wretched victim. She perished on the scaffold, a murderess. From the tortures of my own heart, I turned to contemplate the deep and voiceless grief of my innocence. This was also my doing, and my father's woe and the desolation of that late so smiling home, all was the work of my thrice accursed hands. Ye weep, unhappy ones, but these are not your last tears. Again shall you raise the funeral wall, and the sound of your lamentations shall again and again be heard. Frankenstein, your son, your kinsman, your early much-loved friend, he who would spend each vital drop of blood for your sakes, who has no thought nor sense of joy, except as is mirrored also in your dear countenances, who would fill the air with blessings and spend his life in serving you, he bids you to weep, to shed countless tears, happy beyond his hopes, if thus inexorable fate be satisfied, and if the destruction pause before the peace of the grave have succeeded to your sad torments. Thus spoke my prophetic soul, as, torn by remorse, horror, and despair, I beheld those I loved spend vain sorrow on the graves of William and Justine, the first hapless victims
my unhallowed arts. All right, then.
Oh, thanks, Atora. I enjoy it. I think one of the reasons I enjoy reading Frankenstein is he runs the gamut emotionally. So you really kind of are able to get into it, and I think, well, I think one of the biggest themes in Frankenstein is hubris. Out and out hubris. He thought he was going to be, hey, Desdemona, welcome you. Welcome, welcome. It's pure and utter hubris. He thought that he could be seen as one of the greats in history for his studies and for his work in reanimating dead tissue. And now what he's seeing is the fruits of his hubris. His younger brother, dead. A woman who he believes firmly to be innocent, dead. And yet his hubris hasn't ended. Because he could admit to what he did. Oh, sure. Well, they will look upon me as a madman. Sure they will. That's probable. But he still doesn't admit it. He still has not told anyone what he's done. It's been 2 years since he created this living creature. And he is yet to tell anyone. Hang on a second, folks. It's Mrs. Kahuna. Hi, honey. Okay, can I call you back in a couple minutes? Because I'm on stream. She says hello. Oh, we've got Stretch and Desdemona and Atora and Magpie. Sable was here. Icy is here. I'm missing somebody. It's a whole big gang. Yeah, I'll call you back in about 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, the stuff is here, so. All right. Okay, I'll call you back in a bit. Love you too. Bye. It's Mrs. Kahuna. I had to take the call. Sorry, gangs. So he has not admitted his hubris to anyone. He has not admitted he's done this. Nobody knows it. And, he's just, wow. And that is a theme through Frankenstein, is the hubris. All of this is coming about because of his selfishness, of his desire to be great, that drove him. And remember, we started this with the letters from Robert Hansen to his sister, paralleling Frankenstein and his sister, about how he was going to try to be great. He was going to achieve something. And this story is being told by Frankenstein to Robert as a cautionary tale. Don't let your hubris, don't let your ambition take you to where I ended up. So that's where we're at now. He has seen the monster in the wild, the creature. He knows it's out there. A demon, as he calls it. He knows it's out there. He is convinced it killed his brother. He is convinced that Justine is innocent, was innocent, and that she has gone to her death in that innocence because of that monster. He doesn't know exactly how it happened yet. How the picture from a pendant around his little brother's neck ended up in Justine's pocket. He doesn't know. But he's convinced the creature had something to do with it. Well, friends, thank you so much for hanging out. All of you. It's so much fun. Thank you all for being here. Stretch. Oh, Stretch is lurking. We need to find someone to raid. It's raiding time. Oh, yes, it's raiding time. It's Kahuna raining time. It's raiding time. Something like that. We go to quick actions. All right, channel. Let's see who I have. Well, let's see. Steve Sketches, Coffee, Wordowin. Anybody have a suggestion for a raid? We got a couple minutes here. Coffee. All right. Coffee's one. Anybody else? Because if not, then Coffee Quills it is. I remember getting our raid call is that. Or just Aloha. If you don't want to use emotes because it's too much of a pain, hey, just Aloha when we go in. I'll be on the stream for a few minutes. In fact, let me pull up. There we go. Raid. Coffee Quills. All right, so we're going to raid Coffee. Yeah, well, not until I make the raid. Yes, silly. I haven't made it yet. Yes, so Aloha or, whatever you like. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Monday is a Kahuna Plays. I don't know what I'm playing yet. Oh, make sure it was copied. I don't know what I'm playing yet. So, come and hang out. Oh, actually, I think I'm probably going to play Satisfactory on Monday. I haven't played that in a while. Your PC crashed. Why now? Because, streams. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Monday we'll be playing Satisfactory. Wednesday will be another Kahuna Works Day. Don't know what I'm going to be working on. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. And then next Friday, obviously, more Kahuna Reads. So off you go to Coffee. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much for being here. All of you. Sable, thank you for the raid. Laugh maniacally. All right, that works. And, you guys are awesome. Never forget that. I believe you guys are awesome. I believe you guys are deserving of all the good things that come to you. Yeah. Reread the book. Yeah. It's, watching the movies, it's not the same story in any way, shape, or form. So this is the slowest raid I've had go through. That is very strange. But, yeah, you guys, you're awesome. And thank you for being here. Thank you for the support by being here. For those of you on YouTube, you're not going to the raid. Just, so you know. But have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thanks, Atora. Yeah, I've now made it, I think 8 weeks now with a stream every week. So with 3 streams every week. So back in the saddle. So I will see you guys later. And off you go.